We only planned to stay 2 nights. Nothing crazy. Just some hiking. Some campfire stories. Some quiet away from the city. The park wasn't even that remote. Just a couple hours out past the old state highway. Somewhere the GPS barely worked anymore. There were 4 of us. Me. Luke. Daniel. Mason. We'd been doing trips like this for years. But this time felt different. The forest was thicker here. Darker. Even in May the trees still looked bare. Like they hadn't woken up properly from winter. The ranger station was closed when we got there. A hand-painted sign swinging from one nail. Trail closed. Enter at your own risk. Daniel laughed. Said it was just to scare off the lazy tourists. Luke said we should stick to the main path anyway. Play it safe. Mason shrugged. Said he didn't care either way. He just wanted a fire and a beer. I didn't say anything. I just looked at the woods stretching out behind the sign. They felt too still. Too quiet. No birds. No wind. Just that heavy kind of silence that soaks into your clothes. We started walking anyway. Packs heavy. Boots crunching the old gravel path. For a while it felt normal. Just trees. Just dirt. Just sunlight patchy on the ground. Then about 2 hours in, we found the side trail. It wasn't much. Just a thin line through the undergrowth. Half covered by dead leaves. No signs. No warnings. Just a break in the trees. Mason saw it first. Shortcut to the lake maybe. Luke hesitated. Said we should check the map. Daniel grinned. Already stepping off the main trail. Come on, don't be lame. And just like that, we followed. The deeper we went, the stranger it felt. The ground got wetter. The air colder. The light dimmer even though it was barely past noon. Mason started joking about witches and skinwalkers. Daniel threw sticks at him. Luke kept glancing back over his shoulder. I just walked. One step after another. Feeling the cold creeping up from the ground into my boots. We didn't find the lake. We didn't find anything. Just more trees. More dark twisting paths. Like the forest was folding itself tighter around us. We set up camp before sunset. Because none of us wanted to be moving after dark. Daniel built the fire. Luke set up the tents. Mason opened a beer and sat on a log. Already complaining about the cold. I wandered a little away from the fire. The trees were too tall. Too thin. Their branches scraping against each other like broken fingers. I thought I saw something move. Just a flicker between the trunks. A shape too tall, too narrow. But when I blinked, it was gone. Back at the fire. The others were laughing. Talking about dumb movies and old camping trips. For a minute, I almost forgot the feeling in my gut. The feeling that we had already gone too far. The feeling that the forest was still watching. And waiting. That first night was the last time it felt normal. The fire burned low. The beer ran out. The cold sank into our bones. Somewhere deep in the trees something cracked. A sharp sound like a branch snapping underfoot. We all froze. Daniel laughed it off. Said it was probably a deer. Mason tossed another log on the fire. Said the bigger the fire the safer we were. Luke didn't say anything. He just kept staring into the dark. I crawled into my tent after midnight. The zipper stuck halfway up. I had to fight it closed with shaking fingers. The woods pressed close around us. Like the trees had grown overnight. I heard the others settle in. The shuffle of sleeping bags. The coughs and sighs of tired men. Then silence. Not quiet. Silence. Like something bigger than sound. Like something squeezing the world tight. I don't know how long I lay there. Hours maybe. Time felt strange. Thicker than it should have been. At some point, I heard footsteps. Light. Slow. Not boots. Bare feet. Moving between the tents. I held my breath. The steps passed right by me. So close I should have seen a shadow. Heard breathing. But there was nothing. Then the bells. Soft at first. Like faraway wind chimes. But deeper. Wrong somehow. Like they were made of bone, not metal. I wanted to call out. Wanted to ask if the others heard it too. But my mouth stayed shut. My body refused to move. Something deep inside me said, "Stay still, stay silent." So I did. The bells faded after a while. The footsteps too. But the feeling didn't. The feeling that something had walked among us. Something that wasn't part of the woods. Or maybe something that was. Something that had been here long before we ever came. At dawn I stumbled out of the tent. Bleary. Cold. Daniel was already poking at the fire. Cursing under his breath. Mason sat with his head in his hands. Silent. Luke stood at the edge of the trees. Staring into the mist. None of us said anything. Because we all knew. The forest didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full. Full of something waiting. Watching. Breathing. None of us talked about the night. Not really. But we all felt it. You could see it in the way we moved. Quieter. Slower. Like something had shifted and we didn't want to disturb it. We packed up camp fast. Too fast maybe. Mason didn't finish his coffee. Daniel didn't argue about the gear. Luke just kept glancing back toward the trees. Toward something only he could see. We decided to find the trail again. Get back to where we were supposed to be. We didn't even talk about staying the second night. We just knew. The forest didn't want us here. But the trail was gone. We followed the same markers. The same breaks in the trees. The same muddy slope near the stream. But it all looked different now. Or maybe it looked too much the same. We walked in circles for 2 hours. Maybe more. The sun sat high and gray behind the clouds. But it didn't feel like noon. Time wasn't right here. Daniel snapped first. "We're not lost," he said. "It's just the map that's wrong." Except we didn't have a map. Just a memory of the path we left behind. Mason tried to use his phone. But it just buzzed. Then died. Luke pulled out a compass. But the needle spun in lazy circles. Like it had nothing to hold on to. I tried to laugh. But it didn't sound like me. We kept walking. Trees. More trees. All wrong. Too thin. Too tall. Branches that twisted like wire. Roots that coiled like veins. Luke stopped suddenly. Pointed ahead. "We've already been here," he said. There was the rock with the moss that looked like a face. There was the fallen tree Mason tripped on. We'd walked this exact stretch at least twice before. Daniel cursed. Threw his pack to the ground. Said the forest was playing tricks on us. Mason said nothing. Just stared down the path. Jaw clenched. Eyes wide. We decided to camp again. Just until we got our bearings. None of us wanted to. But we had no choice. We found a small clearing. Barely enough space for the tents. The trees loomed in closer here. Like they'd grown overnight. Leaning in. Like they were listening. At dusk, Luke found something behind a tree. A small pile of rocks. Stacked neatly. Carefully. Too carefully. A circle of sticks laid beside it. Not natural. Not random. He called us over. But before we could say anything, the wind picked up. Sharp. Sudden. Bringing with it the sound of bells again. Closer now. Stronger. We didn't sleep. Not that night. And sometime before dawn, we heard someone whisper our names. But no one was speaking. By the second morning we were cracked. Not panicked. Not yet. But off. Too quiet. Too careful. Like the wrong kind of silence after something breaks. Daniel had circles under his eyes. Mason didn't joke anymore. Luke kept rubbing the back of his neck like something touched him. I stopped trying to pretend it felt normal. Because it didn't. Every time we thought we were heading north, the trees curved wrong. The light shifted. And we'd end up somewhere we'd already been. Paths we never walked. Rocks we'd already passed. But worse than that, we started seeing signs of someone else. Old boots prints. Too fresh. Pieces of twine tied to branches. But frayed like they'd been there for years. A shirt sleeve caught on a branch. Still damp. But shredded at the edge. No animals. No birds. Not even bugs. Just trees. And the feeling that something was watching. Always just beyond where our eyes could follow. At one point Luke climbed a ridge to look for cell signal. He came down white as bone. Said he saw something in the trees. Tall. Thin. Not walking. Just standing. He didn't talk after that. We tried to make another fire. But the wood wouldn't catch. Everything too wet. Too soft. Like the forest itself refused the flame. We ate cold food. Sat around an empty circle of stones. None of us said it. But we all felt it. We weren't alone. Not in the regular sense. Not footsteps or voices. Something else. Like the space we took up was borrowed. And whatever owned it wanted it back. That night was worse. The bells started early. Before the sun had fully dropped. No wind. No movement. Just that sound. Closer than ever. Inside the trees. Inside the air. Inside our heads. I saw Mason standing just outside the firelight. Not moving. Just staring into the woods. I called to him. No answer. I got up. Stepped closer. His mouth was open. But he wasn't breathing. His eyes wide. Fixed on something I couldn't see. I touched his arm. He blinked. Snapped back. Fell hard into the dirt. He didn't remember how he got there. Later. Long after midnight. Luke sat up in his tent and whispered. It knows our names. None of us slept. None of us wanted to. Because something out there didn't need to sleep. And it was getting closer. The next day we tried to move again. Not toward anything. Just away. We didn't even pretend to know where we were going. We just packed and walked. Daniel didn't argue. Luke barely looked up. Mason wouldn't speak at all. He kept wiping his hands. Over and over. Like something was on them he couldn't get off. We walked for hours. Or maybe not. No phones. No signal. No time. The sun didn't move right. Sometimes it felt like morning. Sometimes like evening. Even when it hadn't changed at all. And then we found it. A small clearing. Same trees. Same stones. Same mossy log where Mason had sat that first night. I thought maybe we just looped around. Until Daniel pointed at the fire pit. Ashes still warm. Someone had just been there. We hadn't lit a fire that day. Not since we packed. Luke stepped back. His boot hit something in the grass. A torn piece of tarp. The same kind Mason used for his tent. We all stared. No one spoke. We set up again. Not because we wanted to. But because there was nowhere else to go. The forest didn't open up. It just pressed tighter. The trees leaned harder now. Some of them cracked and groaning. Like they were growing while we watched. That night the bells started again. But now there were whispers too. Not loud. Not clear. But familiar. Daniel's voice. My voice. Luke's voice. Saying things we hadn't said. Not yet. Like echoes sent ahead of us. Bouncing back wrong. I tried to write it down. Make sense of it. But the notebook in my pack was soaked. Not with water. But with something thicker. Something that smelled like old rust. At one point Mason stood up. Walked to the edge of the clearing. Stared into the trees. And said. He's coming back. We asked who. He didn't answer. Luke grabbed my arm later. Eyes wide. Shaking. I saw you. He whispered. But you were already asleep and I saw you walking through the trees. It wasn't you but it looked like you. I didn't know what to say. Because I had seen him too. Just before dusk. Standing near the same tree. But his eyes were wrong. Too still. Too black. None of us slept. We didn't even try. The forest didn't want us to rest. And whatever was walking between the trees wasn't tired either. We stopped speaking around the fire. Even when it burned low. Even when the shadows stretched long and thin across the clearing. We sat there. Silent. Listening. To the bells. To the whispers. To the breathing that wasn't ours. Daniel was the first to lose it. He stood up. Shouted into the woods. We know you're there. His voice cracked. Echoed back wrong. Not like a real echo. Like someone repeating him. Half a second too late. Luke grabbed him. Pulled him back to the fire. We didn't say anything. What could we say? Mason started drawing in the dirt with a stick. Circles. Lines. Symbols I didn't recognize. He didn't look at us. He didn't blink. I caught my reflection in his eyes once. Just for a moment. And it wasn't my face looking back. It was longer. Hungrier. Wearing my smile. But not my soul. Later that night. I saw Daniel get up. Walk into the trees. No flashlight. No sound. I called after him. He didn't turn. He didn't even flinch. Luke followed. Said he wouldn't let him wander alone. I wanted to go too. But something told me not to. Something deep in my bones. Something that said, stay by the fire. I waited hours. The fire burned down to red breathing embers. The mist thickened. Sliding low across the ground. The bells rang again. Slow. Wet. Like they were pulling the air apart. I saw a figure come back. Walking slow. Jerky. Daniel's jacket. Daniel's height. Daniel's limp. But when it stepped into the light, it wasn't Daniel. Not exactly. The mouth smiled too wide. The eyes too still. The hands hung wrong at the wrists. It stopped just outside the circle of stones. Watching. Waiting. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because deep down I knew. It wore his face. But it wasn't him. Then another figure. Behind it. Luke maybe. But moving too smooth. Too quiet. Like the woods had stitched him together wrong. They didn't come closer. They just stood there. Waiting. I threw dirt over the fire. Killed the light. Sank into the darkness. Let the night swallow me whole. Because light meant being seen. And being seen meant being taken. When I woke up the fire was dead. Ashes cold. The clearing darker than it had any right to be. Even with the mist curling through the trees. Daniel and Luke were gone. Their tents. Their packs. Everything. Like they had never been there. Only Mason was still there. Sitting by the dead fire. Rocking slowly. His eyes locked on the dirt. His hands digging little holes. Over and over. Like he was planting something that wasn't meant to grow. I called his name. No answer. I stepped closer. His fingers were raw. Bleeding. The ground under his nails black and wet. When he finally looked up, I wished he hadn't. Because the thing staring out of his eyes wasn't Mason anymore. Not really. Just something wearing his skin like an old coat. He smiled. Lips cracking. "He's almost here," he said. Then he stood up. And walked into the woods. Without looking back. I didn't follow. I couldn't. My legs barely worked. My lungs burned. The air too thick. Too wet. Full of the sound of bells. Beating slow. Steady. Like a second heartbeat under my skin. I packed what I could. Shoved it into my bag with shaking hands. I didn't care where I went. I just needed to move. Needed to get out. I picked a direction. Any direction. And ran. The woods closed in. Branches slashing at my face. Roots grabbing at my boots. The trees groaning low. Not from wind. From breath. Everywhere I turned. The path looked the same. The same twisted tree. The same broken log. The same circle of stones. Over and over. Like the forest had eaten the trail. And was chewing it slowly. Grinning with every crunch. At some point I tripped. Hit the ground hard. Rocks tearing my palms. I lay there. Listening. And I heard them. Footsteps. Moving slow. Measured. Getting closer. I didn't look. I didn't breathe. I pressed my face into the cold dirt. Pretended I wasn't there. The bells rang once. Louder than before. Deep enough to shake the trees. Deep enough to crack the sky. Then silence. Thick. Total. When I finally looked up, I was alone. No footsteps. No voices. No faces wearing mine. Just the trees. Just the mist. Just the bells still ringing inside my chest. I don't remember getting out. Not the walk. Not the road. Not the car. Just the hum of the engine. My hands on the wheel. My face in the rearview mirror. The forest was behind me. But it wasn't really gone. It never is. I made it home. I think. The door was unlocked. The lights were off. Everything smelled wrong. Like dirt. Like ash. Like something that had been buried. I stood in my kitchen. Hands shaking. Breath shallow. Waiting to feel safe again. It didn't come. The bells were quieter now. But always there. Tucked behind the silence. Just enough to know they were real. I threw out my pack. Burned the clothes I wore. Cleaned the dirt from under my nails. Washed my face raw. But I couldn't get it off. Not really. Sometimes I sleep. But when I do, I wake up cold. With mud on my feet. And the sound of branches creaking just outside the window. My phone rings at night. But no one speaks. Just breathing. Slow. Wet. Familiar. I saw my reflection blink before I did. Once. In the bathroom mirror. And now I avoid looking too long. Because I don't know what's looking back. I searched for Daniel. For Luke. For Mason. No reports. No names. No missing persons. Like they were never there. Or maybe like I wasn't. Aunt May called once. She said, "I told you never leave the path." And hung up. I went to visit the woods again. Months later. Just to see if they were real. If I had imagined it. But the trail was gone. The signs were gone. The ranger station was boarded up. No one had ever heard of that park. Not for years. And that's when I knew. I never really left. The bells followed me out. Or maybe I brought them with me. Or maybe this place. This home. This version of the world. Is just another part of the forest. One I can't escape. And when I sleep, I still hear them. Calling from somewhere deep between the trees. Calling my name. And sometimes, I almost answer.